Greetings and welcome to the My Xbox and Me review of Hand of Fate 2. A card game meets dungeon crawler meets action brawler that once again pits players against the dealer, an enigmatic game master who uses his enchanted deck of cards to run players through more than 20 challenges that will have them hunting assassins, reuniting star-crossed lovers, saving the citizens of a plague-stricken city, and much more. Hand of Fate 2 expands on its predecessor in a variety of different ways, and nowhere is this more evident than in the way it tells the story. The game features several levels of storytelling that weave together an impressive and compelling narrative that pulls together multiple threads driven by both the player and the enigmatic dealer who runs the game. Defiant developments deserve a lot of credit for the way they've approached these various threads, implementing a bunch of different types of storytelling with a deftness and creativity that's incredibly smart. At its highest level, Hand of Fate 2 features more than 20 challenges, with each of these presenting a fully self-contained short story with its own plot and unique objectives. While they're never particularly complex from a storytelling standpoint, they are incredibly engaging, whether you're attempting to build a fortress to withstand a raider assault, or attempting to escort a kidnapped prawn potato farmer to meet the love of his life across treacherous, undead-filled lands. Cards that you collect via successful completion of these challenges also have their own story arcs. Decks you build for each challenge can be filled with a certain number of these card types, allowing players to tailor their smaller narrative beats within these larger stories. Completing the events tied to these cards will yield new cards that act as either the next part of the story or a reward for their successful completion. Companion characters you meet and recruit along the way also come with cards that form their own personal story arcs, allowing you to learn more about the characters that would have otherwise merely existed to grant bonuses in games of chance and on the battlefield. It's an incredibly smart system that presents players with multiple running narratives throughout the entire game, making each challenge feel interconnected as you try to complete the stories associated with your various cards, making the world of Hand of Fate 2 feel more cohesive as a result, as well as allowing players control over what stories they want to chase down. Layered across the top of all of these different narratives is Hand of Fate 2's meta-story, as you grapple with the mysterious dealer and his various games that seem to have major impacts on the real world. All of this together gives Hand of Fate 2 a surprisingly strong, varied set of narrative threads for players to follow through on, creating a compelling overall story that is consistently entertaining. The game table is where you'll spend most of your time in Hand of Fate 2. As such, you can tell that a lot of work has gone into making it look as good as possible. There's a high level of polish found on this wooden table and the surrounding trinkets, artifacts, and knickknacks that you'll spend the majority of your time looking at. You'll also spend a lot of your time reading thanks to the choose-your-own-adventure style nature of the card-based gameplay. Hand of Fate 2 makes sure that card effects go off with a flourish. Whether you're engaging in a game of chance or being transported through a Stargate-style portal into the game's combat sections, Hand of Fate 2 does all it can to embellish the card game half of its gameplay with fancy effects, dynamic animations, and games of chance that are executed with a great deal of flourish. The cards themselves are also graced with some excellent pencil art. All of this is aided by a very clean user interface that's incredibly easy to understand, helping the game feel effortless to pick up and play with no major learning curve. In its third-person combat section, the game does look a lot more basic. The flourish still exists, with enemies and companions equipped with many abilities that explode with particle effects and colours. Character models and general textures are a lot less detailed than what you'll find at the game table, however. There's nothing particularly terrible about them, though there's also nothing particularly memorable here either. You won't be enamoured by how great your character looks, or by how awesome that one memorable boss looked, for example. The only misstep Hand of Fate 2 makes here is in its fairly mundane environments. Most combat arenas are small, very generic areas that are almost exclusively made up of circular fields of battle. This is made all the more noticeable considering the game displays an impressive depth of creativity in almost all other areas. As the master of the game and the character you'll spend almost all of your time interacting with, the dealer is more or less the only character who is voice acted in Hand of Fate 2, aside from a small handful of voice lines for other characters. As such, a lot falls on voice actor Anthony Scottie's shoulders. Thankfully, Scottie delivers a compelling performance, presenting the dealer as both a companion and an adversary, effortlessly switching between helpful guide and menacing game master whenever the game calls for it. Elsewhere, both the sound design and soundtrack of Hand of Fate 2 lean more towards serviceable than evocative. Whether it's the clatter of steel or the explosion of spells on the battlefield, or the screams, crashes, or general hubbub of busy towns or taverns that accompany the cards you play, sound effects in Hand of Fate 2 never really go beyond fine. The same can be said of the game's soundtrack, which generally evokes an air of traditional fantasy sounds. The score is rousing during battle, desperate when you mess up a challenge, and serene when you rest at a campfire. There's no part of it that particularly feels stand out as an excellent piece of music, but there's also no part of it that feels out of place or jarring against the events or activities that you're undertaking either. Hand of Fate 2's gameplay can be evenly split into two parts: the card game that powers your journeys through the game's world, and the combat sections that occur when you run into trouble. Combat hasn't really been expanded too much from the original game. It's still a lighter version of the block and parry system inspired by the Arkham series. You attack enemies whilst occasionally having to block, parry, and dodge their attacks with well-timed button pushes. Successfully stringing attacks together allows you to activate a powerful special move that can go some way to tipping the odds in your favour. The addition of a companion character to aid in battle is welcome, though they never really feel like they bring anything useful to the table besides an ability to take the attention of a few enemies. It's an engaging enough brawling system that never outstays its welcome, with battles generally resolved within a couple of minutes. It's the card game where things have been expanded for the sequel. You still navigate various mazes of cards pulled from a deck of your own creation and spiced up by the dealer, who adds various hazard and challenge cards to the deck based on the challenge you're undertaking. Before each challenge, you must build a deck from the cards you've collected, pulling from a variety of events, rewards, respites, and equipment that you'll be able to find on your travels. It's still a great system, allowing you to balance your adventure between cards that will give you rewards and one that you still need to complete to grab their tokens, which will reward you with more cards to choose from in the later stages. Even equipment comes with tokens, allowing you to upgrade your potential gear by completing challenges. The game of chance makes a return, which resolves events by forcing you to pick from shuffled success and failure cards. This has been expanded brilliantly to include dice rolls, pendulum swings, wheels of chance, and much more. The variety is incredibly welcome, keeping the game feeling dynamic throughout thanks to the randomized nature of the chance games you'll face. Hand of Fate 2 is a great expansion to the original game, improving on many of the aspects that made Hand of Fate a solid foundation for a potentially excellent sequel. It's a bigger, better version of what came before. The vastly expanded narrative is excellent, weaving various threads together to form a compelling tapestry driven by player agency and choice, as well as more traditional narrative elements. Gameplay has equally been expanded. Whilst the combat is decent enough, it's in its card game sections that Hand of Fate 2 truly shines, creating moments of tense drama and comedy thanks to the simple act of selecting a card or rolling some dice. Each adventure you play is made memorable thanks to the unique mixture of dungeon crawling and deck building, with the random nature of journeys across the board creating an intense, compelling, rewarding, and occasionally brutal series of adventures, and ones you'll consistently want to return to. Thanks very much for watching this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving us a like, comment, or even subscribing to the channel. And as always, keep it here at my Xbox and me for more reviews, commentary, let's plays, and a weekly podcast. Have a great day, guys.